Hello, you're playing The Waiting Game, the audio-visual stress reliever designed to help you cope until video game launch day. This week we're zapping the crap out of everything in a 3-block radius.
Yes, it's been a couple of years since the last inFamous game, but thankfully we don't have long to wait for the next. inFamous Second Son launches in March of next year, following Delsin Rowe, a 24-year-old stopout who discovers he has hidden powers, making him into something called a conduit. He then joins the fight against an oppressive government agency known as the DUP, causing all sorts of mayhem across the game's open world.
But before you start unlocking all those exciting new powers as Delsin, how are you going to keep yourself entertained?
Well, if you're looking for a similar gameplay experience, letting you zip across the cityscape with some supernatural abilities, you could always pick up Prototype or Prototype 2. The first game deals with Alex Mercer, a shapeshifter with no memories of the past, but the ability to transform parts of his body into devastating weapons. The second follows James Heller as he pursues a murderous vendetta, and both have quite a lot to offer in terms of fun gameplay. While the characters in Prototype tend to be a bit more doom and gloom in their outlook than Delsin Rowe has so far proved himself to be, it's still a good choice to warm you up for the mean streets of Seattle.
But what if Prototype seems a bit too similar to inFamous Second Son? What if you want to run around an open world without the risk of getting jaded with all those powers and glidey bits?
Well, you should play some Crackdown instead, shouldn't you? A franchise with its tongue stuck firmly in cheek, Crackdown is the most fun you're likely to have working for a heavily armed government agency. In the first game, you're tasked with taking down 3 criminal overlords. The second takes place 10 years later, after the city has been overrun with mutants. In both games, you can upgrade your agent to be a better shot, a more proficient driver, a higher jumper, you name it. Twinned with a great sense of humour and some fun, non-linear gameplay, Crackdown is a franchise that's all too easy to get lost in, but it's also not so much of a commitment you won't be able to walk away once inFamous Second Son launches.
Okay, so that's the button mashing out the way, but what if you're too lazy to even work your thumbs? Well, have no fear, we've got a few more suggestions. Not all of them sensible.
Jumper is the English word for sweater, but we're not recommending you stick one of those on unless you're actually, cold. Instead, we're talking about the film starring Rachel Bilson, or her out of the OC, and, rather unfortunately, Hayden Christensen, or him what ruined Star Wars.
But we do not grant you the rank of master. What?
In Jumper, Mr. Christensen plays a young man called David Rice who can teleport to anywhere on Earth. He uses this remarkable ability to lead a lavish lifestyle as a thief, which is all very good and well until a shadowy group of extremists attempt to kill him because that's sort of just what they do. So begins a fight for survival which, to be honest, got a serious panning from critics. Jumper has a Metacritic score of just 35, but hey, sometimes a guilty pleasure film is fun once in a while, and there are definitely parallels to be drawn between Delsin Rowe and David Rice, so that's something.
If on the other hand you prefer watching something with supernatural powers that's actually, good, you could always try watching Heroes.
Heroes, a 4-season TV show made by NBC, follows a bunch of people who, like Delsin from inFamous Second Son, discover they have supernatural powers. The show looks at how the realization changes their lives, much in the same way Second Son does for its graffiti-loving protagonist. Just as these people begin to understand these powers, they find themselves being investigated by a mysterious agency keen on controlling and/or destroying these people, again very much like the plot of inFamous Second Son. While the later seasons of Heroes drew some criticism for being overly bleak, it was still a pretty popular show throughout and might help you get further into the mindset you'll be exploring, while also destroying everything in sight once inFamous Second Son launches.
And if Heroes doesn't take your fancy, we've got one more recommendation involving people with supernatural powers dealing with violent persecution. The definitive one, in fact. It is, of course, XMen.
XMen started out in 1963, created in comic form by Marvel legend Stan Lee and artist Jack Kirby. It's since expanded to include films, TV shows, spin-off comic strands, and more than a few video games. As you're almost certainly aware, the X-Men are superheroes with a range of fantastical powers, many of whom live in seclusion with Professor Xavier as an anti-mutant sentiment begins to grip the nation.
Go and save the city.
Given the diversity of this rich series and the sheer amount of time it's been going, it'd be folly to even try and give you a rundown of every plotline, but suffice it to say no other comic franchise has even come close to X-Men's poignant portrayal of persecution, or the struggles faced by those considered different. The only exception I can come up with is Maus, the beautiful graphic novel by Art Spiegelman, which portrays the persecution of the Jews during the Holocaust with astounding sensitivity and tact. If you want to get ready to play infamous Second Son and take on the agents determined to wipe you out, however, XMen really is your best bet, and you owe it to yourself to pay that universe a visit. Alright then, that should be more than enough to keep you going until infamous Second Son launches, and if you want to check out any of the things we talked about in this episode, you can follow the link on screen now to browse the lot on Amazon.
You are not in control.
As ever, I'll be back next week, but in the meantime, if you want to make your own recommendations, you can leave us a comment or tweet with the hashtag GSWaitingGame. Bye for now.